And before I get into it, I am going to introduce two of my colleagues who will speak with you briefly. Kgosi Mang is a councillor of ours in ActionSA in the city of Tshwane. He was formerly the MMC of Human Settlements before the government collapsed. And of course, the man who needs no introductions, especially this week, our Provincial Chairperson, Funzi and Ngobeni. I will ask each of them to speak about the events that have transpired, and then I'll make some remarks at the end. But thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you for taking this issue seriously.
In the city of Tshwane, I was the one who was offered some kind of a reward in exchange for voting for Dr. Muruno Makwarela to be the mayor. About 2 people were sent to me by one of the councillors within the city to come and speak to me. So the reward was quite lucrative. They said to me, we can give you an equivalent of your own salary through to the end of a term. So the estimated amount for that is over R1 million, way over that. So what I'm not sure is that it was in cash or what. I think I first thought they were bluffing, and then what I'm not sure is that it was in cash or what. I think I first thought they were bluffing, and then that's when they took a phone call to call the councillor and said, look, we have briefed the councillor. The councillor doesn't really believe it. Can you please confirm? And the councillor on the other side on the phone confirmed. So I told them I'm towing the party line, and I am not going to entertain any of this. So they said to me, no, just sleep on it. We'll call you. The phone call never came. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you mind taking the mic?
Oh, take the mic. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's quite sad. This is becoming a pattern now. And this is actually, compromising what South Africans are hoping for, which is, a stable coalition, because we are in the era of coalition. 2024 is around the corner, and we're going to see coalitions in national and provincial government. But this bribing of councillors and trying to steal municipalities through a back door, and it's becoming a pattern which we must fight at all costs. They try to do that in Johannesburg, and you can see now they are in Tshwane, and it's going to be everywhere. So the principle really is that we must encourage ethical leadership, and I think Kgosi is a symbol of that. He declined the offer. He made it clear to them that the interest of the residents of Tshwane are first, and that is why we are here to come and open a case against ethical people. We've been accused in the media of the processes that we are undertaking to try to get to the bottom of this. And we have constantly, reminded everyone that it's important that we must be able to balance the two. There is the right of councillors for a secret ballot, which we must at all times respect and protect. But on the other side, there's also the interest of the residents that needs to be protected as well. Because if we let that one go and we don't do the two, then we are compromising what we have to represent. So I'm glad that you are here. You will witness us going inside and opening the case and ensuring that we follow up this case up until the end. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is important to contextualize what we are doing here. We are here at the Olivenhout police station, which is the police station nearest to where the incident took place. And we are here to lay a charge in terms of PRECA, the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, number 12 of 2004, which is explicit in saying that any person is guilty of an offence if a person who directly or indirectly gives or agrees or offers to give any gratification to a member of a legislative authority, whether for the benefit of that member or for the benefit of another person. It's very clear what we are talking about and why we are here. It's also very clear why this cannot be tolerated. This multi-party coalition of which we are a part in the city of Tshwane has a majority that was awarded to it by the voters of the city of Tshwane. That majority is being undermined by individuals who are buying and selling their vote in councils like we're talking about shares on the stock exchange. and that cannot be tolerated. I think from our point of view, let me make another statement, is that this councillor from DOP did not act in isolation, and let us be very, very clear about that. I don't think the defenders of the people have 2 million rand in cash available, and I think we must be very clear what we're talking about is that there's a group of political parties that are involved in the, let's call it what it is, a coup, to unseat a government that has a majority in the city of Tshwane. And they are buying their way to a majority through their ill-gotten processes. And at the end of the day, what they are doing is illegal. And that group of parties goes beyond DOP, and it goes to other political parties. And I think one of the questions we must be asking, we certainly will be asking the police to make this a primary part of their investigation, and we call upon the media of South Africa to ask as well, is what was the involvement of parties like the ANC and the EFF in this particular exercise? Because the idea that these kind of bribes are being offered by a small party like DOP in isolation or in a vacuum is something that isn't credible, and we all know that. We need to call it what it is. It needs to be investigated. People need to be arrested and go to jail, and councillors who are involved in this must be drummed out of municipal councils for breaking the law and betraying the residents of the city of Tshwane. Thank you very much.
I've got a question. Anton Meyer from Pretoria FM. Anyone can answer, but I think Horsey might be in a position because he's a councillor. Do you know if any other councillors were approached by political parties with the exact same bribery offer?
So let me speak to it if you don't mind, because ActionSA has been involved in a lengthy investigation. You know, you will be aware that we have involved polygraph testing in our investigation, but that is only part of an investigation. It's not the entire thing. And that investigation is closing in on a number of councillors, and I believe you will hear announcements from our organisation in the very near future about the outcome of those investigations and the decisive steps we will take arising from them. But let's also be clear about something. It is honest, ethical leaders like Horsey who report this and say no to bribes and allow us to know what happened. But the people who accepted bribes in the coalition will obviously not be so forthright. And that is why these investigations and getting to the bottom of what motivated those 8 councillors on the 28th of February to do what they do is so important.
So, Michael, I just want to find out, do you believe that the DA threw under the bus when it came to voting, because we know that they voted in numbers instead of using an X? Do you believe that they wanted you guys to be speakers of Tshwane? And also, maybe the second question is this one. We've only seen Nkele that has been removed from the party. How many of those passed the lie detector test on, and how many of them in ActionSA, and why have they not been removed? She's been the only one removed.
Sure. I think let me deal with your last point first. Nkele Molapo was not removed on the basis of an outcome of a lie detector test. And we don't remove councillors on the basis of a lie detector test. The courts of our country have expressed themselves that lie detectors are not definitive by way of evidence. They need to be accompanied by corroborative evidence. And that means an investigation. And there's been a very thorough investigation since the 28th of February. It is something that has demanded all of our attention and has been a priority. But of course, we need to make sure we treat people fairly, that there is due process, and also we don't have innocent people swept in the web of suspicion. Because what we saw in the lie detector test in the coalition, certainly in the beginning, is more people failed in total than the number of people who voted for Makwarela in terms of those 8. So if we had acted solely on that, we would undoubtedly have been including people who failed those lie detector tests because they may have been nervous or something of that nature. And I think from our point of view, that's why the investigation was important and why we had to make sure that when we act, we know what we're doing. And as I indicated earlier, I am convinced that our actions will flow very quickly from today because our investigations have come to a head and we are very clear about the way forward in that particular regard.
So do you think the lie detector test was then unnecessary if you are going to say most of the people failed it? Was it necessary?
No, I don't think it was unnecessary at all. And I think it's not that most people failed. And I think there were 2 things that became necessary about it. The first is that our councillors, many of whom you see today, and they can tell you themselves when you speak with them, they were the ones who said we would like a polygraph test to be conducted. And that is because when people betray the coalition in the fashion that has taken place, it makes everyone look guilty. And what you had is councillors who went to that council, voted with their conscience, and their conscience was to support the coalition and to keep the ANC out of the city of Tshwane. Those councillors feel betrayed by their colleagues who received monies to go and do the wrong thing, and they asked us to undergo a process that would help clear their name.
And the DA question? Sorry, Michael, the DA question.
Sure. No, personally, I do not believe that what the DA did was deliberate. The DA was part of the coalition that took the decision that we would support an ActionSA candidate for Speaker, and I couldn't be in coalition with a political party that would possibly embark upon that level of deception and deviousness. From our point of view, what the DA did was well-meaning, but very poorly directed and executed. Because the laws are explicit in terms of the Electoral Act and the Municipal Electoral Act that a ballot is inadmissible or spoilt if an individual voter is identifying themselves in the casting of their vote. I think from that point of view, the Democratic Alliance, certainly in our engagements afterwards, has seemed committed to the work of ensuring that we get this ActionSA Speaker elected, even if it means that we now need to first remove an ATM Speaker to do so.
Given what you just told us now about some of those councillors and the investigations that are ongoing, and the question on Mkele Molapo being the only one removed, are you confident for tomorrow's special council meeting where they will elect a new mayor that the multi-party coalition's candidate will be elected?
I think the word is yes, we are confident. The reason we are confident is because we had a majority when we attempted to elect an ActionSA Speaker. If you take those votes that were deemed spoiled last week and you added them to this week and you add them to the votes that were admitted for the Speaker, it would have been 106 for the coalition candidate and 105 for the ATM candidate. So we had that majority in place in that council, and ultimately it is our belief that we can achieve the same again tomorrow. Obviously, though, as we close in on individuals who were involved in the electoral outcome that elected Makwarela on the 28th of February, those numbers will start to improve. And as they are replaced with trustworthy individuals, they will return back to the numbers that the voters actually gave us in the 2021 elections. And I think from our point of view, we are going through a very lengthy process. I'm very grateful that our provincial chair is providing leadership in this regard, and I think let him speak to this so that we can develop a PR list that says to South Africans, we take these issues seriously and we have to give you councillors that are beyond reproach. And I think, if you don't mind, let the provincial chair speak to that.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. So yeah, we will be cleaning up our list. We will be going through a review of our PR list. We'll engage in fresh interviews of candidates, and we'll choose the best out of the best, and we'll make sure that the guys that comes through are people that will be able to represent the residents of Tshwane, with honesty and integrity. And that will be what we'll be looking for from these candidates, and once we have done so, we'll then have the numbers that we need to be able to continue giving services to the residents of Tshwane. It's important that we must stabilize this municipality. It's a capital city of South Africa. More importantly, the union building is here. That's where we want to take Mashaba next year, and we want to take him there, properly, in a municipality that is well governed. So we're going to fix Tshwane, and we're going to make sure that once we have fixed Tshwane, we also fix South Africa. There is a so-called national shutdown that's happening on Monday. Ours is it's really to make sure that we remove ANC, but we want to do it democratically. And that is why we need to fix ourselves as a caucus. We have to fix ourselves as a region in Tshwane. We need to get our structures up and running so that when we go to a democratic election next year, that we are able to remove ANC democratically and without doubt ensuring that there's no comeback for them. It's unfortunate, colleagues, that even parties that are claiming that they are going to fight for South Africans and calling national shutdowns are the same parties that are propping up the ANC even here in Tshwane. They are the same parties that are propping up ANC in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni. It's a contradiction of the highest level that they claim that they want to remove the ANC, but they keep on bringing them back through the back door. even trying to buy our own councillors to come and assist them to do so. So we must be clear about that we will never work with the ANC. We will clean our own house, we'll make sure that we are ready for elections 2024, and we'll remove the ANC democratically. So thank you very much, and we hope that you will be with us again once we have opened this case and following it up until to the end. Thank you.
Just maybe one from me. Chairperson, the ANC has not been in charge of the city for the last 7 years, and you have been in charge just recently with the DA-led coalition. The city is bankrupt, and we are talking about fixing the city and getting the ANC out. Is it not time that you guys focus on actually fixing the city instead of removing the ANC? Because you guys were, like I was saying, you have the numbers here, but there's been a 5 billion missing that's not been accounted for. Is that not something that you're worried about?
No, absolutely, and I think you'll know that what we have our stance in regards to that issue of the 5 billion. I think we have held our coalition partner accountable in terms of that. We don't have that mayor now. We don't have him as a candidate coming into this elections tomorrow. So we are quite unapologetic about holding each other accountable within the coalition. And people always say, why are you bickering? Why are you fighting each other? It's not about that. It's about holding each other accountable as coalitions. We're not going to just look the other way when you do wrong because you are our partner. We must hold each other accountable at all times. Look, Tshwane has been in trouble for many, many years. And I think from 2016, I mean, yesterday, we went to Atteridgeville Extension 19, where the mayor that was elected in 2016 promised people in Atteridgeville that they will build houses for disabled and elderly people. They sold the mayoral house for that purpose. But that money was not used properly. Go and look at those houses. I mean, it's supposed to be disabled houses for disabled people, but they don't have ramps, they don't have steps even to go into their houses. They can't use the wheelchair to go to the toilet and help themselves there. You know, so those are things that we will condemn. And but at the same time, you can't fix the country without removing the ANC. We have heard a lot of people saying you are talking a lot about the ANC. We need to be clear, colleagues, that the pandemic year is the ANC. We once remove the ANC, then the rest will follow. So we must be clear with our position with regards to this, that we're going to be able to go out there and deal with the ANC and then be able to fix this country. So I hear your point, and we're going to work with our coalition partners to make sure that we fix the city and give services to our people. Thank you.
Sorry, sir, I just have one last question. Tshwane from Eyewitness News. After the Makwarela vote, we do know that about 8 councillors from the coalition that you are part of voted for Makwarela and betrayed the coalition. So far, we've only seen action from ActionSA in terms of what's happening here today, and what you've also just implied that might happen in the near future. Yeah. There is sort of maybe someone might get a perception that maybe all the 8 councillors came from ActionSA who betrayed the coalition. So can you just maybe just speak to that in terms of maybe tell us what your partners are also doing in investigating this issue?
Sure. So I think, as you can imagine, that while coalitions involve collaboration, the job of disciplining the members of a party remains the job of that party. And I can confirm that the multi-party coalition is meeting regularly, probably 3 or 4 times a week at the moment. At those meetings, each political party is providing feedback on their investigations. And certainly the fact that it is not being seen is not the fact that it is not being worked upon. We see that political parties are working around the clock. They are identifying where the problems may lie in their ranks. The fact that ActionSA is always the first to act is something that we take a great deal of pride in. People will mischaracterize this issue as ActionSA being heavy-handed, but let us be very clear about something, and our provincial chair has just put it so well. The problem in South Africa is the ANC. We campaign in elections on the idea that we need an alternative to the ANC. Voters vote for ActionSA on the idea that we are an alternative to the ANC. So when individual councillors go and betray that trust and do what they want with the votes that were given to them on the basis that ActionSA must be that alternative, we don't act lightly, we act very strongly. And you will see more action from us in the coming days, and the fact that we are the first to act is something we take great pride in. And when South African people go to vote in 2024, they can know above all else that ActionSA will never take their votes and alienate them by giving them to the ANC.
Thank you.
All right.
We are